Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. A lot of you have been asking me about this Marvel reboot news going around the past week. There have been a lot of rumors, in my own personal opinion, that Kevin Feige would do a soft reboot with Avengers Secret Wars, but now we actually have some information straight from the horse's mouth, like Kevin Feige himself talking about rebooting the MCU.
Whatever we do will be quite different than what's been done before.
So we'll explain what's going on, what that's going to look like. It won't be quite the same thing that James Gunn is doing in the DC universe, but it's similar. Like, it won't be quite as hard of a reboot as James Gunn is doing. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing the giveaway for Loki Blu-rays. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know how you want them to change the MCU with this reboot. Like, what about it do you want them to change? Most of us assumed that at some point the MCU would go on for so long, it would create so many headaches behind the scenes, it would become so top-heavy for Marvel and for new viewers, there'd just be so many movies, so much backstory and lore, that the MCU would feel kind of like One Piece. For example, One Piece has more than 25 years, way over 1,000 chapters now, over 1,000 episodes, and many, many movies in there. It becomes so daunting for new viewers, like, where do I actually start? How do I figure this out? That it almost starts to feel like homework, which turns off a lot of new viewers. It would just make more sense for Kevin Feige to start fresh with a soft reboot. Currently, Spider-Man is probably the best record holder for reboots of the character. Tobey Maguire was the main Spider-Man as recently as 2007 in Spider-Man 3, then Andrew Garfield as soon as Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 2014, now it's Tom Holland. Eventually, they will have to reboot with another version of the character. To his credit, Tom Holland does seem like he's going to stick around for like the next choice, Spider-Man 4, Spider-Man 5, Spider-Man 6, which is like almost another 10 years of Spider-Man. But if you were a little kid when Iron Man 1 came out in theaters, you followed all the MCU movies up to this point, and you graduated from college now, and you have a real job, maybe some of you also have your own children now, and now you started taking them to Marvel movies, like, oh, I started watching them when I was a little kid, now I'm taking my little kid to these movies. All of you have some experience with some kind of reboot. It's nothing new, like not a brand new concept, more like par for the course. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Patrick Stewart's Professor X, the classic X-Men coming back in Deadpool 3 and Secret Wars are exceptions to that rule, not the standard. Normally, people get recast way more frequently. The whole phenomenon of the multiverse movies where old actors come back like Spider-Man No Way Home and the Flash movie, for instance, with Michael Keaton's Batman coming back en masse in all these different franchises is a relatively new thing. The actual quote where Kevin Feige is talking about rebooting the MCU comes from an interviewer that interviewed him during the 10-year anniversary for Marvel. So this is Kevin Feige planning on doing a reboot actually quite a while ago, like before Avengers Endgame came out. They say Secret Wars will serve as a soft reboot where they can prune everything that's not working and just keep what is working or bring back people you thought were gone forever. That's basically saying that he's going to recast some of the main characters, not just the X-Men, the Fantastic Four. We knew that that was going to happen because they're doing new versions of those movies. Like they just announced the brand new X-Men movie. They're going to be releasing the new Fantastic Four movie in 2025. But also recasting some of the major characters that they killed off in like Avengers Endgame or people who died in real life and you thought that their characters were gone forever. Then recently when Kevin Feige was doing an interview for the Marvels movie, he also said, the great thing about Marvel truly is how many wonderful, interesting characters we have in the comics. They've been at it for 85 years. Even after 32 movies, it feels like we barely scratched the surface. There are way over 1,000 characters. For example, Sony, because they own the rights to Spider-Man, basically have over 900 characters just as part of the Spider-Man rights. So that's like just one corner of the Marvel Universe. That quote is also Kevin Feige teasing a bunch of story concepts for types of movies that they haven't really done a lot with before. I'll get into that in a second, because a lot of that stuff gets into what they're doing in Marvel Phase 7 and beyond after Secret Wars. But I like the notion that Kevin Feige is going to act kind of like He Who Remains on Loki. The Marvel powers that be that are making all these movies are acting like the real TVA, pruning everything that they feel like has not worked that they've done in the Marvel Universe already. Like some of the Marvel TV series that just haven't worked out, some of the Marvel movies that they felt like haven't worked out, things about the characters' backstories that just don't make sense now with all the new stuff they're introducing, and recasting some of their major characters that they can't use right now because they sunsetted, quote-unquote, the characters with Avengers Endgame, or the actors passed away in real life. So here's where we get to that MCU reboot. Kevin Feige is using Secret Wars to give all the legacy Marvel Fox actors their own version of Avengers Endgame that they never really got the chance to have when Fox was still making the Marvel movies, but also throwing in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, who's still Sony characters, because he always wanted to have big Avengers movies with, for instance, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. That was what that whole deleted scene from the first Iron Man post-credit scene was about. Like, he was trying to say that the X-Men and the Spider-Man characters all existed in the same Earth as the Avengers.
As if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough. I have to deal with a spoiled brat who doesn't play well with others and wants to keep all his toys to himself.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury.
Too bad the lawyers got in the way of that actually happening, but they got into this whole notion of bringing back the legacy characters, giving them their own Avengers type of movie. Spider-Man No Way Home is a really good example of a test run of them bringing back legacy actors. Like, they brought them back just to see how the audience would respond to that. Now we know in retrospect everybody loved it. They'll bring them back in a bigger way during Avengers Secret Wars. Deadpool 3 is going to be like the Spider-Man No Way Home for the classic X-Men actors. Also kind of a test run to see how everyone responds to them coming back. And if it does go well, it seems like it will, you'll see more of them come back during Secret Wars. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was always going to come back for Secret Wars though, and he actually called this giant crossover of all the characters really early on when they were making the second Wolverine movie.
I literally asked the same question the other day to Tom, who's from Marvel, who works with all the other studios. He works with Sony and Fox. That's his job to liaise. And I said, man, can this happen? And he goes, look, it's not going to be easy because you're working with different studios and their properties. But I believe, maybe I'm optimistic. I understand at Marvel they've got Avengers, they've got a lot of big things going on. But at some point, I just find it almost impossible to believe there's not a way to bring Iron Man, all the Avengers characters, you know, Wolverine, the X-Men characters, Spider-Man, and somehow get them in together.
The guy that he's talking about inside Marvel who was telling him about this, like, look, we could probably do this, but it's going to be kind of hard. There are all these lawyers that are going to get in the way. That was Kevin Feige. That's why earlier this year when they released that Deadpool 3 teaser trailer, they thanked Kevin Feige. Like, thank you very much, Kevin Feige.
Thank you, Kevin Feige.
Love you, Kevin Feige. Thank you, MCU.
Speaking of Wolverine specifically, this is also why Kevin Feige revealed that Wolverine will not be in that new rebooted X-Men movie they just announced. That'll feature all new recast actors playing the main characters, and Hugh Jackman will still be the main version of Wolverine through Secret Wars. There are a lot of people that are calling this new rebooted version of the MCU that Kevin Feige will create the Ultimate MCU Universe, like Kevin Feige doing his version of the Marvel comic book Ultimate Universe. Start fresh and then also call it a completely different universe so that you can leave all these legacy MCU movies in a separate universe so all those characters still technically exist and can come back if they want to bring them back. The whole idea with the Ultimate Universe is that the Marvel comic book people felt like there was so much comic book continuity to keep track of, it was turning off a lot of potential new readers, like it had gone full One Piece basically. So they created the Ultimate Universe as like a completely separate universe, giving all the characters brand new backstories starting from issue number 1, so that like new viewers could walk in on day 1 and read any of the comics without understanding who the characters were. Kevin Feige, the Marvel powers that be, are just getting word that the same thing is starting to happen with the Marvel movies. Pretty much everybody in any cinematic universe usually just does a complete reboot every 20 years or so, sometimes more frequently than that if you're a Spider-Man. For example, Warner Brothers is now rebooting Harry Potter. It hasn't been that long since the original Harry Potter movies. Pretty much everything gets rebooted in some fashion at some point. It's just that it's the first time for it to happen to the MCU because 2008 with Iron Man 1 doesn't feel like that long ago, but by the time we get past Secret Wars, it will have been about 20 years. And right now, very apropos, it's also happening to DC movies. James Gunn is rebooting all those. The major difference, though, between James Gunn's DC movie reboot and the MCU reboot is that the MCU reboot is more of a soft reboot. James Gunn is recasting like almost 98% of all those characters. Kevin Feige is only going to be recasting maybe like 20-25% of the characters, maybe even less than that. Remember the quote that the interview got from him about bringing back dead characters you never thought that you'd see again? That means new versions of Iron Man, Black Panther, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. Some of those we already knew about, but not many people had actually thought about them recasting Iron Man, for example. One of the other major goals of this soft reboot after Secret Wars is saying that in the new backstory of this rebooted MCU, whatever you want to call it, Ultimate MCU, will be that all these different types of characters from the comics all existed in the same universe on the same Earth this whole time. So this new version of the MCU will feel more like the traditional 616 comic book universe where everybody's always existed in the same universe. They'll probably use this reboot to make the MCU the true 616 universe, like it will look truly like the comic book 616 universe. and they'll just say that Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, the Fantastic Four, all the other legacy actors still exist, they're just from other universes. So like the original MCU will just exist in another universe. What do you want them to do with the new version of Iron Man, since Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man is so iconic and basically the foundation of the MCU? Like, they wouldn't have a studio now today if it weren't for Iron Man 1. Who do you want to play that character? We're probably not going to see that new version of Iron Man for a good long while. Like, currently Secret Wars is supposed to release in 2027. That might get delayed again, and they might turn it into 2 different movies. So it's totally possible we don't see the new version of Iron Man until like 2029 or a little bit later. And that'll be a little over 20 years since Iron Man 1 debuted, which sounds pretty reasonable. Like, just talk to Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Congratulations to the giveaway winner from my last big Marvel video, npierce14. Please email me on the About page of my channel so I can get your contact details. My full Loki Season 2 Episode 3 video will post later this week after they release it. Click here to learn about the Loki Season 2 Council of Kangs deleted scenes and a bunch of deleted scenes with the Kang Multiverse War that didn't make it into Season 2. And click here for all my Loki Season 2 episode videos. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.